Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. My name is Utielu and today I'm joined by the gorgeous, I'm not going to use sublime, the effervescent.
Oh my God.
Dammy. So now you have to be effervescent.
Hi Uti.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Today is just you and I in the studio. It feels like you're so far away.
Yeah, like there's a very long distance. I'm not sure why, but hey, we're here, Sha.
Awesome. How's your day been?
My day has been good. It's the first day at work this week because I've been a little under the weather, so I've been trying to recuperate.
Feeling better now?
Yeah, it's just battling with cold, but
this weather is doing all sorts.
Yeah.
In fact, I've been on a mission this week to be the mommy that doesn't catch a cold from her child.
really,
My son was coughing, he was sneezing.
Oh wow.
There was a day he was like, Mama, I want to hug you. I'm like,
Wait first.
I love you, but I really don't want to be
because
sneezing.
it's quite contagious.
I tell
and
you, you
it's
release
not
them to
funny.
school and within a matter of days, there's one cough, one cold, one
I
something.
think it's just there's something in the air. I'm not sure what it is, but
I think it's the transition to the rains. The
Yeah, I
rains
think
are
so.
becoming a bit more consistent. I mean, Tuesday morning, it felt like the heavens opened.
yeah, I was wondering what happened. Why is there so much rain and water everywhere?
But every time it rains heavily, I remember that I told myself that, well, Lagos State government warned you that there will be
Actually,
heavy
warned
rains
us
this
ahead.
year. So, yes, we will accept it. But yeah, looking forward to. It feels like the week just flies by a lot quicker. Like you say, hello Monday,
And then
next
it's already
day,
Friday.
It's Friday. I really don't get it. I mean, I don't know if I should be happy that time is moving faster, ergo I'm getting older, or if I should be sad. I don't even know which one it is.
I'm very
but
indifferent about it because on one hand it's quite annoying. Why is it so fast? On one hand is like, okay, let's just go fast
weekend
like
swings
that,
back
Sha,
round
because
along.
I want that weekend again.
It swings back quicker, but yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. So
How are you two? How have you been? How was your day?
I'm good. My days have been long this week. My days have
Right.
been on control. So I start off my day planning how my day will go, and then my day happens.
And something just
The
alters.
key word there is happens.
I can imagine.
You know, so
can
I find
imagine.
that I'm spent talking all through the day, which means that I can't really deal with emails and things till late at
Yeah.
night, which then
Yeah.
snowballs into I don't sleep.
And then the cycle continues like
yes.
that.
So, you know, I think for this week, I'm glad that the weekend is inching closer faster because
Yeah.
I just need to sleep. I need to rest. I need to find a bit of balance. But
Should,
we're here.
actually. Yeah.
So looking forward to a good show and today's conversation.
Yeah.
So here's what we found as today's quote. Surviving cervical cancer is not just about beating the disease, but about finding strength in the battle. And that is so true.
Yeah.
Not even just cervical cancer.
Any
cancer of any
exactly.
kind.
Yeah.
It's a battle. And for me, it's an all-encompassing battle because it's a battle of the mind. It's a battle of the body. It's... cancer is... I don't even know how to explain
And
it.
I think the hardest part is the fact that there's no particular cure to it. It just has to be, managed and managed and managed.
Yeah.
And,
So I think the treatments that are there are not selective. So I often say that, in my opinion, having seen people that have gone through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and I mean, I lost my mom to cancer, so it's particularly a touchy one for me. But seeing what she went through, as in, I always say that, man, chemotherapy is like the devil. That's the only way I can put it. Because
there's a lot of side effects that comes with it.
Exactly. It's quite a toxic mix, and it can't differentiate healthy cells from bad cells. So it just wreaks havoc. But you have to do it to get rid of, and then there's a whole recovery process from it. And I think the thing with cancer for me that really gets me is that from that point on, the survivor lives with the fear or the reality that it could come back.
Yeah.
And it can be cancer of anything: skin, liver, bones, blood. I mean, it's just
could eradicate cancer forever.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping and praying that there is inspiration for the people who make these things to come and say, you know what, we found a cure.
I'm really hoping.
Because as our environment changes, as the food that we consume changes, all of these things impact health. So cancer used to be like an old people's disease. It used to be
But
uncommon.
now, young people,
Now, children, adults.
I have a friend
yeah.
who I can't remember what particular cancer she's dealing with, or let me say she has dealt with, because she's done with her chemotherapy, but she's not the same. She's not the same person I used to know. I knew her as a much chubby person. Well, not so chubby, but at least chubby enough. But now she's looking quite emaciated, and it feels like she's emaciating even further. So, I mean, sometimes I'm like, I don't know how you're coping. I don't know how you're dealing mentally, but
yeah,
I pray that God is with you, because it's if I am feeling that way from a distance,
imagine
how much more
she
it's somehow.
It definitely is not. It's not one that we pray for anybody to experience, and for those that are going through it, wishing them, all the best.
Really.
So, cervical cancer is a pressing public health issue in Nigeria, representing one of the leading causes of cancer-related mortality among women. The prevalence of cervical cancer in Nigeria is alarming, with many cases often diagnosed at advanced stages, limiting treatment options and reducing survival rates. It is important to have a comprehensive overview of the landscape of cervical cancer in Nigeria, exploring its epidemiology, risk factors, preventative measures, and the challenges faced in its prevention and control. So tonight we'll be discussing the topic, Understanding Cervical Cancer, Risk Factors and Prevention, with Ifeoluwa Dari Johnson. And when we open our phone lines, as always, we'll love to hear what you have to say. But first, let's take a quick break to see what we found in the news.
Members of our House of Assembly or the National Assembly, who you have said are supposedly our representatives, who are supposed to be representing our interests, making laws that will be executed by the executive. These same people who you are saying that need to help us are people who have been helping themselves in the past. These are people who have only made laws that only hold us accountable and not necessarily them. Again, in the recent past, we've seen them fight for cars and monies and sitting allowances that are much more higher than the amount of money that a university professor takes home as his pay. And most of these professors still haven't received their pay. Who's to say that these same people that you're talking about accountability on their past will cut off their nose to spite their face?
The major thing that we must look into, our leaders, the leaders, who are the pilots of this democratic system. That's the leaders of the country, the people in governance, the governors, the president, and every leader in every tier of government. How are they elected? How do they get into these offices? How do we put them in this position of power to make laws for us to direct our affairs and all that? That takes me to our electoral process. All right? So the citizens can do without the right framework, without the right laws that will check people in government from abusing their authority, from siphoning funds meant for the development of their society. The members of the House of Assembly are the representatives of the people.
What has happened to the Band A customers is that the tariff has been adjusted to reflect the cost of the service. So let's even price the commodity properly. I mean, there is a conversation around whether electricity is basic amenity or utility, or whether it's a commodity. In the days when we were swimming in petrodollar, 70s, 80s, and things like that, you could think along that line, but not today again. Electricity is a commodity. It has to be sold. So when we get more money from it, we can then develop the power sector to the point where customers will be the ones to say, no, this is the hours of electricity that I want, because that's what I can afford. So if it is nighttime alone, you can enjoy electricity, all well and good. I mean, most of us travel out of this country, and we know that people don't play with their utilities. They pay for it. In Nigeria, we play with our utilities. We not only play with our utilities, we even vandalize. And we want a stable power sector. Where is that done?
So, Administrative Professionals Day is today, April 24th. It is held every year on the Wednesday of the last full week in April. Administrative Professionals Day recognizes the important and valued work of secretaries, administrative assistants, executive assistants, receptionists, and other administrative support professionals. They are dedicated women and men who contribute highly to the behind-the-scenes aspects of the day-to-day running of our schools, offices, and businesses. So please join us in celebrating Administrative Professionals Day and letting our clerical and professional administrative support staff know how much they are appreciated by our system and our schools. If ever there was a day that, or a team of people that needed to be celebrated,
It's the administrative
it's these
staff.
guys. Like,
yes.
they walk through the fire, they provide support. I almost want to say that behind every successful leader, there is a strong support person.
Yeah.
In whatever guise it may be, whether an executive assistant, a personal assistant, a member of their team who is just like a strong, you know, that provides them that support. Because the truth is, we've entered a world where, if I go for a meeting, 1 hour meeting, I can come back and in that hour, maybe I have like 60 emails.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, I'm like, I don't have the time. I don't have
the luxury of time to go through the emails and all that.
So these people, right? I mean, now that you have the advent of technology with AI, some of these solutions, technology even helped to make them virtual. So you could be here in Nigeria and you have and be a virtual assistant to someone who's in the US. You know, so they provide a fundamental aspect of support, and I think they add to the efficiency of whoever they're working with. I mean, imagine just someone just taking the basics of managing your calendar. As you take on more, and particularly in the corporate world, become more senior, even as entrepreneurs, your business grows. Yeah, there are just some mundane tasks that you don't
want to get yourself involved in anymore. Yeah, I agree.
You know, so we wish all the EAs, PAs, receptionists, secretaries, we thank you for all the hard work that you do. You keep the economy
keep the work going,
running. So definitely glad to see that. So what did you find for us in the news?
Okay, so what I found for us in the news, well, it has already been in the news for a while, so it's just like a follow-up story. So the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, has revealed that a former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, transferred $720,000 from the government's coffers to a bureau de change before leaving the office to pay in advance for his child's school fees. So in his words now, he said a sitting governor, because he knows he is going, moved money directly from the government to bureau de change. use it to pay the child's school fees in advance. I mean, in anticipation that he was going to leave the government house. You know, so as funny as this sounds, a lot of people have been, I mean, I was on Twitter earlier today, and then some people were of the opinion that it's like, is that the fact that he paid for his child's school fees in advance that is really paying the EFCC chairman? But hey, I mean, to be on a very serious side, it doesn't make any literal sense, because you know you're leaving the office and then you decide to take that huge amount of money to then to change to Naira or to whatever currency really just to pay for your child's school fees. It shows quite a level of irresponsibility and unaccountability on the because it was, I think I took a part of this story sometime last week, because it was the same governor that created the office of the former governor or something. So it's very funny, because I'm like, this man, what are you really driving at? What are you really... And the funny thing is that the EFCC chairman went, because this is an inherited case for him.
Right.
It's not a case that he, as soon as he assumed office, then the case just opened up. No, it's quite an inherited case. And then, so when he got the case file, he had reached out to Yahaya Bello as, you know, man to man now. Ogami, something don't so. This was going on and all that, so that, you know, maybe they can even talk about it, you know, calmly before they even blow it out of proportion. But Yahaya Bello is of the opinion that I can't show up at your office. So that's where the problem is at. Now I'm trying to call you to like settle this thing, you know, calmly. But you on the other hand, you're refuting, you're saying you can't come to the office, maybe in fear of being arrested and all that. I mean, the law will take its course, ideally. Yeah. But then again, I mean, I believe that if you know your way around things, it can be a bit minimal than it will be really exaggerated. So but not showing up at all is a problem.
Is a problem. So I think we have a video that sort of gives a bit more insight into this.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe we can run that.
Particulars of offense is there. It's before court. Go and check it. Apply for our processes, please. You will get some of these particulars of offense there. Move money directly from government to produce the change. Use it to pay the child's school fee in advance. In advance. Dollars. I mean, how much? 70 what? In dollars, yes. In dollars. I think $72,000 or thereabout. $720,000, sorry. $720,000 in advance. In anticipating that he was going to leave government house. In a poor state like Kogi. And you want me to close my eyes to that? Under the guise of saying I'm being used. Used by who? At this stage of my life? Used by who? By who? For crying out loud. I assumed office here. I didn't initiate the case. I inherited the case file. I called for the case file, I called for the report, and I said, look, there are issues here. Do you know on my honor, I put a call across to him, which ordinarily I'm not supposed to do, just to honor him as a governor, as a immediate past governor. Sir, there are issues. I've seen this case file. Can you just come? Let us clarify these issues. I'm under camera. He said, sir, I thank you, my brother. I know, but I can't come. There's one lady, I don't know what her name is, maybe a senator, that she learned she had set, you know, she has surrounded the FCC with over 100 journalists, you know, to come and embarrass him and intimidate him and all kind of stuff. I said, okay, if that is your fear, I'm going to pass you through my own gate, special man's gate. You will come to my floor. We will accord you that respect. I will invite my operatives. They will come and interrogate you or interview you in my own office. What could be more honorable than that? In my own office. To allay the fear. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You know what he said? But can't they come to my village?
The sins of our politicians. The reality of it, right, is I've been seeing all the reports in the news. I've been seeing all the stories about Yahaya Bello. And to be honest, I think I've become desensitized to the actions of our leaders, our political leaders. So I didn't even bother to check, follow the story. What did he do? I mean, I kind of saw that this approach, blacklisting him, watchlisting his, like all of that, I was like, man, whatever this guy did, wow. So when I saw this, and I thought to myself, on a lighter note, well, the entire fund for Kogi State students to go to school The man paid it forward for his own child. He's still an indigenous of Kogi State. So, I mean,
God.
he can claim that, really, the money was used for
but hey,
the education of an indigenous of Kogi State.
Well, but then again, for a state as poor as Kogi State.
No, I agree. Like that's what I said on a lighter note. There's no excuse for it.
Yeah, good.
But if tomorrow you hear that he claimed that after all his son is a citizen of Kogi, is an indigenous of Kogi State, at the end of the day. You'd never know. You know, you can't put anything past it. But I mean, it really just. I hope that the effort and the dedication that has been put into the case so far will continue until they get to a logical conclusion. Let justice, the judiciary system...
Because it seems like this EFCC chairman actually knows what he's doing and he wants to get it done really good.
We hope that this is not one that also eventually will somehow die. Maybe tomorrow night he will say he's sick, he has to fly abroad for treatment, and they will drag it unendingly. So we'll keep following and keep watching this space. So my story... So because we're talking, of course, about a medical topic today, this headline caught my attention. And it says, criticism trail Nigeria's approval of GMO corn for planting. And the GMO means genetically modified foods or crops. Now, Teller maize is a maize variety that has been genetically engineered for improved insect resistance and drought tolerance to boost farmers' yield per hectare and also complement existing demand gaps. So GMO foods have a bit of a checkered past. If you've eaten a lot of the foods imported from North America, you most likely have eaten some GMO type foods because majority of the corn, which is maize, corn syrup, cornstarch, all of these things all come from GMO modified corn. And genetically modified foods really is a sort of a bioengineering process that modifies or changes the makeup of the plant or the particular crop for different reasons. It can be being able to plant something in an area that has high drought and make it drought resistant so it can grow with a lot less water, or you're making it stronger and almost repellent against insects and things like that. So when you look at our food insecurity or food security issues, on the surface of it, I can sort of see why this might be a solution, right? So the government has approved the commercial release of 4 Teller maize varieties for commercial planting in the country. And this makes Nigeria the second African country behind South Africa to adopt the commercialization of a genetically modified maize crop. We just talked about, when we were talking earlier about cancer and its prevalence, we talked about the changes, and there's been a lot of concern in the past. So I was still in the UK when, I can't remember if it's the UK or the whole of Europe banned the use of GMOs, right? So essentially, there was a lot of talk then about the long-term effects of it. One, it basically, because it's been modified and enhanced, right? Any land where you plant it then becomes difficult to plant anything else, right? So you spread the seedlings and it becomes difficult. So if as a farmer, right, your farm is next to mine and you plant a GMO crop in that farm, it's possible that the wind can blow, like there's all these challenges. There was also the fact that things like antibiotic resistance, there was just so many things around, uncertainty around it, and eventually it was banned. Of course, in the United States, and now it's coming to Africa. And, we have a lot of challenges in Africa. So there is potential there. I suppose if you're a government, if you're a leader, and you're trying to solve the food security issues, right, you're going to try and make it as easy as possible to farm these crops. So I get it, but it still is a bit unsettling, right, that we're going down this way. I'm hoping that between that time and now, a lot more improvements and innovations have happened in that sort of biotech, bioengineering space that allows this to be safer, because we really need to be clear as to the impact. In America, the healthcare system is still good.
Well, here in Nigeria.
Here in Nigeria, it's a different story, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not just Nigeria. I think there are about 6 African countries in total that are sort of leading or entering this biotech, bioengineering space, and Nigeria is one of them. So it's a watch this space thing for me. I hope that there will be a lot of monitoring, a lot of continuous research to see the impact. And more importantly, the final thing that I'll mention is that there is clear standards around if I'm eating something that has been made with GMO corn. Somebody needs to tell me, so that when I'm buying it, I'm making a choice
to either buy
in
it
myself
or not.
to buy it or not.
Yeah.
So I remember at the time, Europe, there were pretty strict rules about it being clearly labeled, so everybody could see that it was
sure
GMO
that kind of
before it
policy
was
can
banned.
actually fly
so,
in Nigeria?
Exactly. So these are the things that I think that are important for us, because when we take certain decisions, we now need to decide for ourselves how we're going to
work it out as
you know,
people.
not just the tunnel vision of, okay, we are planting this maize, but there are other processes and other things around that ecosystem that also need to be thought through and implemented. So I hope that happens. But as with all unfolding stories, we will continue to watch this space and see how that goes. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll jump into today's conversation. Please stay with us.
Efficiency in terms of electricity distribution. People should be able to see this power being generated. You know, when you see that power is generated, you won't really complain in payment. However, the hike in price was quite sudden. Yeah, they made clarifications that would only affect about 1.9 million Nigerians, that about 10 million more are still under subsidy. And it begs the question, are they not Nigerians? The so-called 1.9, are they not entitled to some form of subsidy? You know, this should happen in phases, not outright like 200% increase. That is so, will I say, uncalled for. And looking at the fact that subsidy has been removed on petroleum products like a year ago, bringing about this one now makes it difficult for everybody at the same time.
I think that this is time where, you know, we're trying to move this country forward. All hands should be on deck. And this is a time where the drivers of this economy should begin to ask the right questions. If you say that Nigerians are losing faith in the currency or the naira, then why is that happening? Why are we losing faith? If we can answer that question, then we get to the next. So what can we now do? And how do we do it? So these are some of the questions that we need to ask. But of course, it's not far-fetched. We already know what the answer is. We already know what the challenges are. First of all, you want to talk about, you know, the fact that you need to close the gap between, you know, inflation. So for instance, as I talk about the US inflation rate is at 3.5, if I'm not mistaken, for 2024.
If we
and
have
you're
those
looking
kind
at
of
Nigeria,
numbers, we'd be like,
come on. And we're talking about 33 point something at this point in time. So, but it's already been established that if you have this, you know, two countries, one that has, you know, a higher inflation rate, you know, the value of the naira or the value of their currency would always drop.
So cervical cancer is a significant global health concern affecting millions of women each year. understanding its risk factors and preventative measures is crucial in combating this disease. In this segment, we aim to delve deeper into the intricacies of cervical cancer, shedding light on its causes, prevention strategies, and the importance of early detection through screening. Tonight, we embark on an enlightening journey with our esteemed guest, a general practitioner, to unravel the mysteries of this silent killer that affects far too many women in our communities. Please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp message to 0818-038-4663. So, cervical cancer. I really want to hear what our guest has to say, because this is, if I'm not mistaken, the second leading cancer affecting women in Nigeria. Right? So it is, I would assume the first would be breast cancer, but it is, what I think is more important for me, or why sometimes I think cervical cancer needs to be spoken about more, is because it is, unlike breast cancer, it is highly avoidable, right? There's the vaccine, there is so this is usually largely born of the contraction of the human papillomavirus, the HPV. And the understanding the disease, understanding the sort of the risk factors, how it is, I wouldn't say contracted, but the elements that lead to its eventual presentation in a person, they're all largely avoidable. Then there's a vaccine. So if there's ever a particular cancer affecting women that we need to talk about and raise awareness about, it is cervical cancer. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Our guest today is Dr. Seyi Abiodun. He is a medical doctor at Health Tracker, a venture-backed health technology startup focused on decentralizing healthcare in Africa. He is a GP with a strong business acumen, developed over a decade of excellence leading healthcare. So I don't know if Dr. Abiodun is with us now. Hi, Dr. Abiodun. Good evening. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Good evening.
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you on the show. Like we said, raising awareness on about cervical cancer is important to us. Of course, as a team of ladies on this show, we're totally biased towards the issues that affect women. But cervical cancer, as we said, second leading cancer in Nigeria, in a nation where we have less than adequate health care, and there's even less equity in access to health care. Can you talk us through the basics of what cervical cancer is, and from your perspective, what is driving the prevalence where it's now the second leading cancer experienced by women in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Good evening once again. So when we talk about cervical cancer, it's something that everybody, not just women, should know and be aware about, because it is ravaging the female population at rates that is unprecedented. So cervical cancer is a type of cancer that occurs in the cells of the cervix. Now, the cervix is the lower part of the uterus, and it's often caused by certain strains of the human papillomavirus. Now, this virus is a sexually transmitted infection, actually, for which regular screening, with pap tests and HPV tests can, detect certain abnormalities around the cervix. And when these abnormalities are detected early, then they are easier to treat. So that is just a brief, information about cervical cancer, about what causes it, and about how, treatment and all that. But let me just go ahead and give you some, a few statistics about cervical cancer. One, the incidence. Cervical cancer is the second, like you said now, the second most common cancer in women, especially in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa. Um, Worldwide, it is estimated that we have about 604,000 new cases every year. And of that, we have 341,000 deaths annually. Another fact about cervical cancer is nearly all cases of cervical cancer are caused by the HPV infection. It is extremely common, with approximately about 80% of sexually active individuals being infected at some point in their lives. So it is a very common infection. Now, whether it leads to cancer is a different discussion entirely, but it is very common in sexually active individuals. And so that is why we all must know and be aware about what HPV is and how it leads to cervical cancer. Another fact is, because most of the occurrence of cervical cancer, originate from HPV infection. What this means is HPV vaccination has shown remarkable effectiveness in reducing HPV infection and leading on to cervical cancer. And that means that vaccination has a very great impact on reducing the incidence of cervical cancer or HPV infection at first, and then cervical cancer um, as the end result. Studies have shown also that there's a significant decline in HPV infections and cancer and all other precancer lesions in countries that have high vaccination coverage. Screening, regular cervical screening is also something that we should talk about, because it almost never presents with any symptom, especially at the early stage when it's just an infection. And so the population.
Are you there?
Any test
Okay.
that, yeah. So there are tests that can be done, like the PAP test and the HPV test, which on doing this test, and when we detect a case of HPV infection, treatment can then be initiated, which leads on to substantial decrease in the incidence of cervical cancer and in mortality. So also, you should know that there are global disparities. That low and middle income countries bear the greatest burden of cervical cancer because of limited access to screening, limited access to vaccination, and then limited access to treatment. So these are the things that contribute to the higher rates. I know you asked the question just before I started talking about what's really driving this increase in the incidence of this cervical cancer, and these socio-economical factors contribute a lot to detecting, early detection, screening, vaccination, and treatment. So these have been the major drivers according to research. So
thank you. That's such a wonderful, robust intro into the conversation. I just had a follow-up question, because you talked about the vaccine. Now,
yeah.
I know I remember reading at some point that there is an ideal age to take the vaccine, because I think that is important for viewers to take away, to understand. Sometimes when you say sexually active, people think that this is a vaccine that you take in adulthood, but I understand that it's better to take it when you're younger. So perhaps you can just give us some insights into how to get the best out of the vaccine.
Yeah. Okay. So so the routine vaccination for HPV is actually recommended for preteens and teens. So when I say preteens and teens, I mean from the ages of 9 to about 14, you know, because vaccination during this age range provides the greatest benefits because it ensures protection before potential exposure to HPV through sexual activity. If you really look at it, vaccination is best for someone who has not contracted the HPV. So it's recommended for preteens and teens. However, all sexually active individuals who have tested negative should also have the vaccine because this ensures protection, from exposure to HPV through any sexual activity.
For that clarity.
Thank
So what we're going to do is take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll come back to you. Please stay with us. So if you just tuned in, we're discussing understanding cervical cancer, risk factors and prevention with Dr. Sheyi Abiodun. So please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 0818-038-4663. We're also opening our phone lines, and you can reach us on 0702-500-7749. Please remember to turn down the volume of a TV set so we can have a great conversation.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Abiodun. So I know that for one, the awareness of cervical cancer is not doing so great in Nigeria currently, especially in the rural areas. So now my question is, what strategies do you think can be employed to access cervical cancer, both awareness and treatment now in rural areas?
Could you come again with the question? Let me understand.
What strategies do you think we can employ rather to create more awareness and even get access to treatments in the rural areas in Nigeria for cervical cancer?
Okay, that's a very important question because when we're talking of cervical cancer, it has to be all encompassing. Yeah. So both urban areas, rural areas of the country, we need to have strategies that can work for these particular areas. What we've tried and what we have seen that has worked for rural areas in Nigeria is the involvement of the grassroots in spreading the information about cervical cancer. Okay, so it's more of a word of mouth, one-on-one, boots on ground, spreading the information, making use of already established structures like the primary health centers, and then making use of translators because there can be language barriers sometimes when you go to rural areas and try to spread this information about cervical cancer. They must first understand what it means and what the risk factors are and what it entails, like what happens. For example, if we have a positive result, what happens next? So our strategies are aimed to break the language barrier, first of all, and to make this information as accessible as possible, as something as simple as an SMS on your phone, something as simple as getting the information from translators during visits, routine visits to primary health centers, getting the rural authorities involved to spread this information. So that has been what has worked, and I believe what is working when it comes to getting the information to the rural areas and the interlands in Nigeria.
So thank you for that. I just wanted to touch a bit very quickly. In fact, I have two questions. Very quickly on the treatment for cervical cancer. The vaccine is one thing to try and prevent it, but if you then have already been diagnosed, what is the expected treatment? Is it chemotherapy? Is it surgery? What does that look like? And then I guess let me let you take that question first, and then we'll take the second.
Okay. All right. So treatment for cervical cancer, and generally for a positive HPV result, depends on several factors, including the stage of the cancer, for one, or if at all it has not led to a cancer, if it's just if it's still an HPV infection, then there are other things that need to follow up after a positive test result. And so options include surgery if it's cancer. It could be surgery. There are things like biopsy. If it's advanced, it can involve hysterectomy, that is removal of the uterus and cervix. There are different levels of that. Cervical. It could be removal of other, adjacent organs, close to the uterus, if there's if it has spread locally. So that's for treatment of cervical cancer. But then, before it gets to that, so there's treatment for HPV positive results. So definitely the first step we have to do, we have to establish the stage. Okay, so there's under what we call acetic acid. So by doing this, we're checking for the changes in the cellular structure, cellular integrity, to know whether these changes caused by the HPV have caused changes that can lead to cancer. Because there can be HPV infection that has not led to cancerous changes yet. And so when we detect these changes, then there are other follow-up steps that have to be done, like colposcopy and some other treatment. So there are various treatment models for various stages of this HPV infection.
Okay.
All right, sorry to drag you back a little. So I hear you say HPV or cervical cancer now often comes with almost no symptoms sometimes. So how then do people diagnose? I mean, I know that's the job of a doctor really, but then how then do people know to go to the hospital? Because most times these people actually get diagnosed almost at a very late stage. Just to prevent that, where they can get diagnosed before it even turns to a very cancerous disease. So how or when should people go to the hospital? What should they feel like before they then go to the hospital to say, okay, maybe I'm sick or I feel funny and I need to get checked or something? I mean, aside from preventing it now, let's assume that, okay, it is already there. How do we figure it out? How do we know when to actually go to the hospital to see a doctor?
Okay, so like we mentioned earlier, every sexually active female should get tested for HPV. Let's take that as a ground rule, especially because it is asymptomatic. And by that, I mean that it does not show any symptom. Okay? And also because of the potential benefit in the sense of the grave damage that can be avoided. Because this is one cancer that can be prevented largely. Like we said earlier, 80% of cervical cancer is caused by HPV infection. So it is only proper that every sexually active female is tested for HPV. So that is one thing that we can set as a ground rule that will help us to catch any infection early on time. And as long as you're sexually active, that means that this test has to be as frequent as every 2 years, every 1 year, depending on the age and depending on the level of. Setting this as a ground rule will help us to catch such infection early enough to be able to treat, so that will prevent a progression to cervical cancer. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, we still have cases where, because of lack of access to testing and lack of access to treatment, these cases don't get caught early enough, and then we get them as cases of already progressed cervical cancer. And by that time, when it starts having symptoms, it must have already progressed to cancer. And that's the essence of what we are doing as healthcare professionals, especially in Health Rapper, trying to decentralize this testing and make sure that every woman can self-sample themselves in such a way that is easy and convenient. They don't even have to go to any facility to do it. Once you get the kit, you get, and then it can be tested and recorded.
Yeah, thank you.
So, we're fast running out of time, but I want to take the last few minutes to talk about a different aspect of, or to see whether this aspect can be preventative as well. With a lot of cancers, and in fact with general health, the concept that food is medicine, right? And when we talk about other types of cancers, we say don't smoke, don't eat certain things. So is that the case also for cervical cancer? Is it possible to increase or reduce your risk factors based on what you consume?
Hello, I was losing the audio there.
Okay, so let me take the question again. So I was saying that in general, if I take the concept of food as medicine, right, for other types of cancers, you generally have the impact of what you consume, sometimes impacting cancers and, you know, it advancing or it even showing up. So I'm asking that, is that also a factor in cervical cancer? Is food a potential, has the potential, does it have the potential to increase or decrease the risk factors associated with cervical cancer? Hi, Dr. Abiodun, are you there? Hi, Dr. Abiodun.
Hello,
Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay.
But it seems that I couldn't quite get the question. The audio was...
Okay. Can you hear me clearly now?
Sorry.
Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, I hear you clearly now.
Okay. So I was asking...
Clearly now.
Okay, great. So I was asking really about food as medicine. So other types of cancers, in fact, general well-being, right? What we consume is a huge part of that. And for certain cancers, and certainly for some types of cancers, they say that what you consume can increase your risk factors. So I'm trying to find out if that is the same with cervical cancer. Are there foods we can either eat more of or eat less of that will impact cervical cancer in the negative or in the positive?
I think I get the question now. I think the question is about the contribution of, you know, carcinogenic food and, you know, other carcinogenic materials to the cervical cancer. Well, of course, generally, cancers generally, irrespective of where they occur, can be affected or modified by what we, you know, take generally. I know we mentioned HPV infection as the major factor for cervical cancer, and which is true. 80% of all cases of cervical cancer have HPV, you know, as the etiology. But we know that other things contribute, definitely contribute to the incidence of cervical cancer. We know that things like smoking, for one, you know, smoking is a risk factor. Okay, any kind of activity of food or drug, that weakens the immune system can also affect the prognosis of cervical cancer. The same way it will affect the prognosis of any cancer, it will affect the progression of cervical cancer. And so when you're talking of drugs that weaken the immune system, for example, if for a reason an individual has to be on steroids, for example, we know that steroids have a way of weakening the immune system, but then it's a case of benefit against or demerits and merits of it, because there are cases where an individual will need to be on these medications, but we know that they affect the immune system. So anything that weakens the immune system will also increase the chances of developing or progressing, you know, of these cancers. So yes.
So thank you.
Well, of course, eating healthy food, the same way it helps for any case of cancer, it also helps in the case of, you know, reducing our predisposition to cervical cancer as well as any other cancer.
Absolutely.
But the contribution of HPV is so overpowering that that is why we have a lot of focus on HPV.
Yeah, that's
because
the
we
key
know
key
that
driver.
exactly,
Yeah.
because we know that once you
Once
cut
we can
that
tackle that,
factor
we
out,
can deal
you
with
have
everything
driven down
else.
the incidence
Yes.
largely, almost to nothing.
Okay.
Yes. So while we do all the other healthy practices, exercise, healthy food, healthy diet,
Yes.
we also need to focus on the major thing, which is HPV.
Thank
Exactly.
you so much,
Thank you.
Dr. Abiodun. You've certainly given us a lot of food for thought and a lot of action that can be taken to reduce our risk of cervical cancer. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Dami. It was fun doing this with you. But we've run out of time, sadly. So before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram at Wayshow Africa and Official Upgrade TV. Interact with us further, drop a comment, and invite your friends and family to watch Ways. Don't watch it alone. And if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Surviving cervical cancer is not just about beating the disease, but about finding strength in the battle. So we'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. as usual, and we'll bring another great conversation to your screen. Have a good evening.